Henry says, in my opinion, in 5 years, Alabama will return to its place it's been before Saban. They made the greatest run in college football history, but it's coming to an end within the next 5 years tops. I'd agree, 5 years tops on that. Um, and the chances of just going out and hiring somebody that wants to fill those shoes is incredibly difficult, Caleb.
Yeah, I don't think I think they'll fall back to the pack. They're not going to return to where they were before Saban because remember, Dave,
Oh,
they're
that's
near.
bad, bad. Yeah, they had one doofus coach after another.
Yeah, and part of this had, and by the way, part of this was Alabama had three separate scandals that put them on probation three separate times. Scandals that aren't going to be scandals anymore. And even amidst those scandals, they had a top 10 finish in 2005, very close to winning the SEC that year. They won the SEC in 1999, and they won the national title in 1992. So even Alabama during like a down period of like 20 years still wins like three SEC titles and a national title because it's such a, again, Dave, where do you rank it? I mean, I know we say Ohio State, Georgia, and LSU are probably the three easiest jobs in America. Alabama's probably number four, wouldn't you say? Like where just any idiot can win 10
Give
games.
me the three again.
Ohio State, Georgia, and LSU are the top three. LSU number one, Ohio State number two, Georgia number three. I think are the three easiest jobs. Maybe Georgia number two.
I think LSU's number one.
I agree.
I think Ohio State's pretty easy, given the fact that I've got some ties up there and worked up there for a short amount of time. I mean, it's pretty much everybody's Ohio State. So I think Georgia, you have the Atlanta area. I just people would throw in Southern California because of the talent there, but you do have to compete with UCLA if they're in good shape, and you also don't have the passion for football, and I think you're going to see that more and more and more. And I mentioned it earlier, I think safety is going to crop up as another issue with Damar Hamlin and the ongoing concussion issue that's not going away. I mean, I know, Caleb, I'm not going to mention names, but I know former players in the NFL that have passed away of CTE that are struggling with CTE just over the past 2 or 3 years, that are struggling to this day with CTE. That on a real life perspective I can speak to, and I know that's not going away, which we talked about earlier in the show. So yeah, I think you've got the right grouping. I would actually have Alabama down on par. So I think you've got the top three. Well, you could say Texas there as well if they get the right.
They got to compete with A&M and
Have to compete with A&M. That's a good
Oklahoma.
point. So I think you've got the right three. Then I think you take the next step down, and you have Alabama, which their in-state talent base is way better than when Nick Saban took over. You do have to compete with Auburn. I think you have Texas, who has to compete with Texas A&M. I think you have Southern California, who I illustrated their challenges before. So I think you've got about 5 schools on that second tier, and Alabama's right in there. But I think you pegged the top three.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling to challenge that. The only one I could throw out there if they got all in on football would be Miami. But right now, the stadium's 50 minutes from 55 from the campus. So that's an issue. You're not building a campus. The facilities are woefully behind.
And on top of that, I mean, the big thing with me with Miami is, and it's got a Southern California factor. Whereas I feel like Florida and Florida State could both pick off some of those recruits largely because the passion's not there. Look, if you're a 5-star athlete at Florida, you walk into a bar, every girl wants to be near you. Okay, you're a 5-star athlete at Miami, you walk into a bar, you got to compete with like 8 other celebrities that may be richer than you.
Yeah, and you're still paying $18 for a beer.
Yeah.
I would argue this in that little 3-county area, Miami-Dade. I would argue they're as passionate as anybody. Now, you get outside of that area, outside of the immediate Coral Gables area, that's true. I will tell you one quick story to illustrate that. I flew all the way to Miami to cover like 2 or 3 prospects, and I can't even remember their name at the time, but I remember going to a camp, and I've been to the Under Armour camps. I've been to the Under Armour All-American game. I've been to U.S. Army All-American Bowl. I've been to all that stuff. And I literally, Caleb, was about 8 feet away from two of the guys who were teammates that I needed to interview. There were 450 people at the camp, 300 of which were players. I'm not talking about a bunch of donkeys. I'm talking about real players. It got so busy and so crowded, and there were so many athletes. I flew all the way down there, and they were 8 feet away. There were people in between us. I lost them. I lost them amidst all the great athletes. And I had to go to their school the next day. I mean, it was bizarre. I thought you go to a camp like that and you're like, how Hurricanes can you mess this up? Well, it's because they go to other schools and they see how they're treated, and it's a lot better.